How's it going, guys? I'm just going to talk to you today a little bit about spine health and mobility. Someone asked me this question a while ago. It took me a little bit to get around to it, but I thought I would address it today since I'm going to be coming back with some more videos in the next couple months. First, what we should talk about is kind of the overall patterns and movement of the spine. This video will be a little bit more specifically geared around thoracic spine mobility and kind of thoracic spine mobility, particularly for the bridge or extension of the spine. But the spine has basically three typical movements that you'll see. It does get a little bit more complicated because there are so many different joints within the spine itself. But generally there is rotation and there is extension and flexion. So flexion can be a hollow body position or something like that, or just a rounded back would be flexion. And extension, probably the most typical place you would see is a back bridge, right? And so when you're looking at any of these patterns, like, they are the base patterns for a lot of different explosive movements, especially kind of more linear movements. And you want to make sure that you're able to hit that either flexion or extension or even rotation in a global pattern. So that basically means the angle is sort of equal throughout all different vertebrae along the back, right? And you can see you might have a localized extension fault along one area, so that means there might be immobility in a certain area, which is quite common, or even hypermobility, where one or two vertebrae are kind of doing the most of the bending, making them quite a bit weaker and more susceptible to injuries, right? So if this is the case, you kind of figure out what your faults may be, where they occur, and then train to avoid it, right? So either train to strengthen the area if it's hypermobile, or do some of the strategies that I'll show to increase the mobility of the spine if there is an area that is immobile, right? And typically, for me and a lot of people, the problem area would be the thoracic spine, right? And that's kind of the mid-level of the body. So there's the cervical spine, which is basically your neck, the lumbar spine, which is kind of your lower back, or basically below the ribs and above the pelvis, and then there's a thoracic spine, which pretty much occurs over the rib cage area of the body. So I've included a few examples of how to improve the mobility of the thoracic spine and some of the exercises that I do to try to improve my bridge position, because it isn't one of my strongest areas of flexibility. So one of the first stretches I like to do is actually taking it through rotation. So there are a few different ways you can do this. One is either standing or crouching by a wall and doing a little rotation where you grab the wall and kind of mimic rolling in and out of a back bridge position. Now, I got this from Ido Portal. I guess it's a common exercise done in capoeira. So you can look more at either of those for more information. But basically, whenever a joint is immobile, you can kind of decompress it by taking it through rotation. And this occurs a lot over all sorts of different joints over the body, right? So just generally, if it's super stiff, if you add a little bit of rotation to it, it often frees up the joint capsule a little bit. So I like to do that as one of my stretches. And as well, I like to do this stretch that I was taught by a hand balancer, where you lie on the ground and you rotate your hips in one direction, and then you actively rotate your upper body in the opposite direction and then take it back. So you're kind of creating a little bit of rotation throughout the whole spine and emphasizing the upper body's movement. And then there are some other stretches I like to do that kind of encourage more of an extension pattern, right? And the first one I like is using a keg to kind of support the specific area of the thoracic spine, right? So you really encouraging it to fold over the groove of the keg, and you grab onto a kettlebell to anchor your hands to the ground, basically. And you grab onto the kettlebell, and then what I like to do is really try to emphasize that my arms are nice and straight. I'm reaching towards the ground, similar to a bridge position, and then I proceed to drop my hips, kind of outlining that keg, and I hit that position, try to feel a good stretch, and I hold it for about 3 seconds, and I usually do sets of 10 or so of these. You can hold for longer, and you can also use a band for your upper body as well, like holding onto a band rather than a kettlebell. It's a little bit harder to get into, but if you can get into it, it's also valuable because it provides a little bit of banded distraction along the shoulders. And I got that stretch from Kelly Starrett in his book Becoming a Supple Leopard. He has his YouTube channel Mobility WOD, check it out as well. Lots of other good information about spine health and pretty much anywhere else in the body. So feel free to check out that for more information. Another one I got from him is with a lacrosse ball peanut, I call it. I forget what he calls it, but it's basically you take 2 lacrosse balls, tape them together, and it should have a little kind of groove in the middle that you can set along your spine. So what you do is you gather up all the tissue by kind of giving yourself a big hug, separating the shoulder blades, and then you line it up along the thoracic spine, and you proceed to rock side to side and to extend over that lacrosse ball, trying to free up your specific vertebrae, and spending a lot of time here working on the soft tissue and trying to release some of the tense tissues in the thoracic spine, right? Because there's quite a bit of movement, quite a bit of strength required from that area whenever you're doing pull movements. So you just proceed to extend over, and you can also extend your arms up overhead, and this helps free up some of the movement of the shoulders as well. Another valuable one is actually hitting a bridge position but elevating the feet, so you can emphasize the upper body's role. Because if you're anything like me, the part of the bridge that you struggle straightening out is kind of along the upper part of the body, the shoulders and the elbows. So you can actually elevate your feet and really extend out, either against a wall or a box or something like that. And you can extend out, emphasizing the role of the upper body. Because the bridge itself isn't necessarily the best stretch to get better at the bridge. You have to find your weaknesses within the movement or the pattern or position, and you have to locate where the weakness is and then try to isolate those specific areas. So the reverse can be done, where you're bridging against a wall or something so that your feet are on the ground and your upper body is elevated, and that would emphasize maybe a little bit more of the lower body or the hips role. And basically that's kind of my strategy for encouraging a little bit of thoracic mobility, and especially related to the bridge and extension. I can touch a little bit more on some of the other areas if you're interested in a little bit of cervical and lumbar mobility. Generally, they're not typically as seized up as the thoracic spine, but there are specific, or there are people that have issues in those specific areas, right? And always make sure to kind of consult your doctor, see a chiropractor or something like that if you have major issues or pain and anything. It should be uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be causing any pain. Hopefully some of this information was helpful. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content similar, and give it a thumbs up. It helps grow the channel and helps me provide more content. And yeah, share it around if you found it helpful.